All right, and today I'm joined with Dan John here from danjohnworkouts.net. That's the website, correct?
DanJohnUniversity.com now. We changed the title because it's more than just workouts, and that was Brian's idea. They changed it to university, but part of me thinks it's funny. I guess I like it. I like it. It's like,
Mhm.
and the idea is that we have a big library of written material there. In fact, in the last week, we've put up a thing on lean made simple. Pat Flynn's provided some stuff. Tim Anderson. In fact, if anybody has a PDF they wrote and is not getting any traction, we'll put it there. And what's nice is it pops up the traction almost immediately. So yeah, danjohnuniversity.com and danjohn.net, both. Okay.
Yeah, awesome, fantastic. So yeah, today we're just gonna kind of chat about Even Easier Strength, the program that I just did, see maybe what I did wrong, and then yeah, just kind of even go from there. So yeah, if you want to start off with kind of telling the listeners a little bit about what Even Easier Strength was, how it came about, and then
Sure. Let's start with the real roots of it. Now, I've been lifting weights since 1965, so I've seen a lot of stuff come and go. And it's funny, just saying that. Yeah, it's right here. If you don't mind, Vinny.
Yeah.
This is the first booklet I ever read on weightlifting. It's the Ted Williams barbell and dumbbell set. What it's funny about it, by the way, to buy it used cost me more than the barbell set cost originally. But when you look at, and I hope your listeners, yeah. So basically, it's funny because when you look at this Ted Williams thing from 3, 2, whatever year it was, he basically says you should do about 2 sets of 5, pick the weight off the ground, put the weight up overhead. And I got to tell you, that's easy strength. So, but you got to be careful. This is how we lifted weights until, and there's nothing wrong with it, but about 1975, 2 things happened. The documentary Pumping Iron, which I was at the premiere for, which was kind of cool. I met Arnold. And the second thing was the book Arnold, The Education of a Bodybuilder. Literally overnight, our field went from strength training to bodybuilding. And now, even now, when you're working with your college kids, your high school kids, you say, we're going to go lift weights. That's the first thing they do.
Yeah.
They show that bicep,
Yeah.
And so guys like me have been struggling with this a long time because I'm trying to get you to improve your track and field performance, make you a better football player, but you want to do triceps and biceps or ab work, which is crazy for a thrower. I call it Frankenstein's monster training. So first off, let's make sure you understand. There's 2 historical things what I want to get across. First, the tradition is about 2 sets of 5, 3 sets of 5 in the weight room. Add weight, get stronger. Reg Park, 5 sets of 5, nothing, all within the same bandwidth. And then bodybuilding showed up. Okay, fine. So we jump ahead now to 1991, and I'm at a discus camp in Denison University in Granville, Ohio, and the university has an amazing sports library. And I go in there and I pull up, in fact, I bought the book, it's right over there, Percy Cerruti's book on training track and field athletes. And he trains his marathoners now, with deadlifts, about 2 sets of 5, bench press or overhead press, 2 sets of 5, or cheat curls, pull-ups, and a sit-up, 5 exercises. And I looked at that, and he also, and his conditioning for throwers included these volleyball games you just make up. And then, of course, in my career, we have a game called Ultimate, where you play it with medicine balls. So 4-pound medicine balls, and we play, if you've ever done Ultimate Frisbee, it's the same set of rules, but with medicine balls. So, you got these throwers running around for an hour, never even look at, they sprint, they jog, they run, but in their brain, they never sprint or jog or run. And so Cerruti set me really up mentally to say, okay, listen, Olympic lifts are important, no question. But if you want to just get strong, and then we have to jump ahead now to 2003. I hope you don't mind this. When I was down in I guess it was Las Vegas, I think, with Pavel Satsulin, and he said, pick 5 exercises, do just those for the next 40 days, and here's the key: never miss a lift. If it feels too light, go heavy. So when you ram those things in, so you got to jam Ted Williams, you got to jam in Percy Cerruti's work with the 5 choices, Pavel's idea of the 5, and then me, the great experiential warrior. I am the if it's stupid, I've done it. Okay, and so when I first did it a few times, the best experiences I've had where I got personal records, in my own case, were things like the incline bench press. Well, I hadn't done inclines. This is kind of I had a long lifting and throwing career. So I stopped doing inclines in 1979. And so in 2003, I decided, let's give them another run.
Yeah.
So what I thought was light, so I would do 2 sets of 5 with 165. About a week later, that was too light. So I went to 185. Week later, 205. Week later, 225. One night, I'm training by myself, and the weights are just leaping off my chest. Yeah. So I decided to test it, and I jumped up to, with no spotter, by myself in a freezing cold garage, 315 for a double.
Wow. Oh, yeah.
Well, my lifetime best was 300 for a single, and I do 315. Well, that's what really opened my eyes. And the other experiment that just really shocked me, I'm a big believer when you train by yourself to do thick bar deadlifts.
Okay.
Because thick bar, it's wonderful for your grip. Okay, perfect. But you can't have bad reps with a thick bar, because if you shoot your hips up, the weight falls out of your hands. So you have to lift in one piece. Well, my thick bar, and for those of you just listening, I use a C grip, but I think there were 2.5-inch bars. Okay. My personal record went from 265 to 315 on that. Well, I'm an advanced lifter. I've been around a long time. So that's what got me going. Then I started talking. So we haven't written the book yet. We're still in the. So I start sharing this online with people. I start getting some interesting feedback. People who are good at pull-ups start telling me, hey, that's how you train pull-ups. I go, what do you mean that's how you train pull-ups? He goes, yeah, I mean, if you can do 10 pull-ups and you want to increase your pull-up, don't try to do 11. It'll hurt. In fact, it's called MAPS, middle-age pull-up syndrome. It's when you get this real pain, right? It's in your elbow. If you can do 10 reps, what you want to do is sets of 5 as fast and as bouncy and as light. So 5 feels so easy that when you max out again, go to 6. That's easy. Slowly slide up to 7. Boy, that's nothing. Well, what's happening, and this comes, if you don't mind if I'm all over the place, Vinny, I'm trying to give historical. Now, what's fascinating is we discovered the same thing in throwing. But I'm going to come back to one more example, typing on your computer or your typewriter. But what we found in throwing is, say like you throw the discus 200 feet. Well, that's your max. To get to 201, there's a couple ways to do it. You can I always say, you can deadlift your way up to 201 or get your 80% throw. And what you do, so 80% of 200, well, it's not really 80%, but that's 160. So I would put a garbage can out in the field at 160 and try to have you either throw it into the garbage can or hit it or just get close. Well, pretty soon, that 160 is so easy. You have a hard time. Well, then we slide it out to 170, and it feels like 160 used to feel. Well, what happened is we prodded your 80% up. We gently nudged 80% up, which we think makes your 100% go up. And we used to call this the Soviet drill, but it's also called range throwing. And I don't know why it's called the Soviet drill, except maybe somebody told me that Soviet hammer throwers did. I don't know, but that's why you just throw names on things and the next day you don't even remember the story. Like there's an exercise I have my shot putters do called Chewbacca's, and I have no idea why it's called a Chewbacca, but that's just what the drill is called. It's a Chewbacca drill. What does that mean? I don't know. It's just a drill. But so what we began to sense is that instead of trying all these ways of squeezing another ounce out of your top end, we try to nudge up your 80%.
Yeah.
And that's really what happens. Strength and flexibility are more neurological. Okay, it starts off neurological. First, you train your body to do this. That's why whenever somebody who's not been lifting for more than 3 years asks me, what about percents? I just want to slap them. You haven't done enough reps to know what your 100% is.
Yep.
And to be honest, even if you know what your 100% is, if the national championships is on the line, your 100% is much higher than what your 100% is. So the easiest way to think about it when you're teaching this to students, Vinny, is think about how you learned how to type. Now, on day one, I can't walk over to you and start screaming in your ear, would it be AZA, AZA, faster, faster, because you don't have the nervous system yet ready to go. I can't make you type faster day one. But weirdly, if you like watching my daughter or wife, I'm very bad with the iPhone typing on the text. I'm terrible. And I'm a grandfather. I'm just not very good,
Sure.
But I can talk. I can have a conversation with somebody and write typing at the same time because I type so much that I'm very good at that. Mm-hmm. Well, the reason I'm good at typing is because I've trained my nervous system to be good at typing. So to increase your bench press, to increase your deadlift, one of the things you need to do is get that number of reps that it becomes kind of second nature to you. And then you slide up faster. It's just training the nervous system. It's like watching a child learning to crawl, to walk, to run. Watching a toddler run is hilarious because, they might be born to squat well, but they're not born to sprint well. They got that weird, all that stuff is going all over the place. And, it's cute to watch, but it's very inefficient, So then all of a sudden these other things started to hit me. I had a friend of mine, and you can find it back in my old newsletter Get Up, but I got a guy report to me from, he'd been watching the Bulgarian national team train. And he said the weirdest thing about watching the Bulgarian national Olympic lifting team train is they never miss in training. Now they'll miss on the platform at the Worlds because they're trying to do something that maybe no person in human history has ever done. But in training, they never miss. So if you don't mind, Vinny, all these things kind of started to bind together. And that's when Pavel and I decided to write the book. Now there's a second part is while Pavel and I were writing the book, Pavel and John Duquesne were splitting up at Dragon Door. And so this little internal thing really impacted the final product of Easy Strength, which is why Easy Strength is still, I hate to say it, is a work in progress.
Yeah.
So I've done my best, just as because I've done my best, because I think the materials that are in the book Easy Strength are very good, but they needed just a little polish. And when you're working with a lot of people, I've had a lot of feedback. For example, your post, that's more feedback for me.
Yeah.
So certain things began to ring as true. I came up with this concept I call the rule of 10. So basically, you have about 10 quality reps in a workout. Now, someone's going to raise their hand and say, well, yeah, but Delorme and hypertrophy. Oh, remember, I'm talking about strength training. You've made the jump back to bodybuilding, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I agree with Delorme. I think he said 15 to 30 reps, 15 to 25 reps, quality reps is that bodybuilding power number. So if I said to you, Vinny, we're doing 3 sets of 8 today, you wouldn't be like, whoa, wow, that's, if I said we're doing 5 sets of 5, you wouldn't go, dude, where did that come from? I mean, these are reasonable, doable workouts that have survived and proven their worth over time. So the rule of 10 is basically you have about 10 reps in strength. But if I said we're doing 3 sets of 3, Stephen Court's great program, the C sets of 3 powerlifting program, everyone goes, yeah, that's a strength program. 5 sets of 2, which is a kind of a program. We have my weightlifting club, the Hercules Club. That's kind of how we do overhead presses and front squats, 5 sets of 2. Because you can keep the load way up there. And 1, 2, whew, that was hard. Rest. 1, 2. That was still. The funny thing with singles, we discovered that you probably only have 6. So you have less singles. You have more sets of doubles than you have sets of singles. So that's called the rule of 10. That's with repetitions. Okay. Yeah. If you're doing something like a pull-up and you can do 25 pull-ups, well, I would say, well, let's talk about load. Vinny, what do you weigh, if you don't mind me asking?
165.
Okay, so at a body weight of 165, when I was 162, I could do 14 pull-ups. Mm-hmm. When I weighed 272, I could probably do 2 or 3. What was the difference?
Yeah, the reps. So
well, 110 additional pounds.
Right. So, yeah.
So I don't know if you're a good pull-up or not, but let's just say you can knock off 25. Well, we would have to add load to somehow, either with a vest, a dangling weight, something. You got that?
Yeah.
So, and for me, just doing 5 sets of 2 in the pull-up is a good solid workout. If I jump up to 3 sets of 3, that's a real game changer for me. Okay. I mean, I'm only about 220 now, but still, it's still low. For you though, you might have to do those with load. So the rule of 10 would be something you have to put into your mind. And then the second thing is, even though I say there's 5 exercises, the 5th one should almost universally be the ab wheel.
Yeah.
A set of 10, 2 sets of 5. And people push back on this a lot. I say, trust me, you're going to be lifting weights 5 days a week. That's plenty to counter all the deadlifting. What we've discovered is there's 3 basic exercises that work almost in every situation. Now, before I say that, the bench press also works, but a vertical push, so that'd be a military press. I guess if you could handle it, behind the neck press, single kettlebell press, something like that. Okay, vertical pull, and that would be the pull up generally, and then the deadlift family. So I've just basically given you the workout, right? So you're going to finish off with the ab wheel. You're going to do a vertical push, a vertical pull, a deadlift, and then there's the other one. And I've come to the conclusion now that you can do something like kettlebell swings, max out numbers at 75 because you're doing them every day. Kettlebell snatches, I've got a buddy in Ireland doing them as a test with a number of people, and we're figuring out that number is about 20 to 40. So that's not very many.
No.
No, that's very low, but it's kettlebell snatch where it's a much longer range. Okay, so vertical push, vertical pull, deadlift, finish with an ab wheel, either a kettlebell swing or kettlebell snatch, or farmer walk, sled pull, prowler. And don't go mental on it. Don't go crazy. Don't, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Hand goes up in the back. Yes, sir. What about squats? There's massive discussions on my Q&A. It's called the Dan John Forum at davedraper.com. We have beat this to death. People have made it succeed, but you have to use about 50% of your squat to make it work. And I just think, this is the thought I have, the squat might be just too complex.
Sure. Yeah.
And also, if you're doing the deadlift variation, you're squatting and deadlifting every day, and that's difficult to do.
Right.
So that's now I brought you up to 2020. So your warm up, I usually recommend just doing goblet squats. Do you know what the goblet squat is?
Yes, sir. You invented it, right?
There you go. That you get the full credit. So you might do a few goblet squats. The one thing I noticed when I do easy strength is you really don't need, you don't really need much warm up, because especially if I'm going to go in and do 2 sets of 5 in the incline with 165 and 2 sets of 5 on the thick bar deadlift with 135 and a couple, I'm I don't really need to warm up. I mean, I don't need to be sweating profusely and, everything. So one of the things that shocks people when they do easy strength is that the workouts last, and I'm going to ask you, did you have workouts that seem to last 9 to 10 minutes?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Especially on those 1 by 10 days.
Oh, you're in and out. Yeah.
I was in and out. Yeah, I was just like, well, that was fun. Time to go back home.
One time, my wife and I, we were making dinner, and I said, I'm going to go do my workout. I was back in before the water boiled. The water hadn't yet boiled, and I'd finished my workout. And she looked over and she goes, I thought you were going to work out today. I'm done.
Yeah, right.
You're like some elite athlete. Shut up. I'm doing easy strength.
Right. Yeah.
But what you're trying to do, Vinny, is get as strong as you can, as simply as you can.
Right. Yep.
You're trying. Here's the quality we call strength. So get stronger. Now, people say, well, what about hypertrophy work? Well, I'm still a big engine. I don't want to brag or anything, but when I train at the gym over here, I'm still one of the strongest guys around. I mean, so if we're doing, if you're doing 3 sets of 8 with a 45-pound bar, and you get 5 times as strong, and later you're doing 3 sets of 8 with a 155-pound bar, which one's going to have a bigger hit on hypertrophy and the hormonal cascade? Well, the one that's the bigger load. So the value in these 40 days is getting stronger. Brett Jones always says that strength, absolute strength, is the glass. Everything else is what you fill up in the glass. So the stronger you are, the more water more volume you can have with the other qualities. It is weird because if you're strong, when you decide to stretch, you can stretch strongly. Strength is the basis of power. I've always believed it's the basis of speed too. So you have this, as you get that, Edna here has a thimbleful of strength, and I'm a freaking keg. I can pour a lot more into a keg. So I don't have to be so tight on this and that, but she has to be exacting on everything, including caloric consumption. So that brings you up to 2020.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's pretty much about that then. But yeah, I like what you said there with the strength too, because I feel like, especially now, and I see that with my own friends and stuff, they always think like, well, I got to go to do bodybuilding workout stuff, and I mean, I used to do that too, and then started doing strength training, and then everything else just gets better because of it, and
right.
You don't really realize it until you do it, I guess, is one thing, but also, just, being able to be more efficient as in that will ultimately, lead you to, like you said, being able to do more volume and fill up the glass that way.
Yeah.
So, I love it.
And when I go to like, there's a gym over here I used to have a free membership to, but I'm angry with them, so I don't go anymore. They fired all my friends. When I would go into the gym, I mean, I'd look around and I'd look at these guys who are trying to, get all buffed up for summer, but the loads were literally lighter than what my wife and daughters would use, and these guys were men, but I'm not saying they're spinning their wheels, and I'm not, and I respect the fact that they come into the gym and they're doing something, but because they're trying to do 5 sets of 10 and get a pump, and if they did 5 sets of 2 and added load, and then 5 sets of 5 with that same load, and then 5 sets of 10 with that same load, the hormonal cascade would be much more evident.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's just, and I guess that's not something you've really seen like lost in translation with easier strength though, right? Like people realize that it is more of a strength program and whatnot, not so much.
No, people constantly, Vinny, so I've been online for 22 years, and I didn't think people could get stupider, but I am proud to say that humanity has rewarded me with descending even deeper into stupidity. As we're typing this, the coronavirus is starting to outbreak, and someone, I'm not going to mention the person's name, but they live on Pennsylvania Avenue, said, yeah, it might be bad, it might not be. Well, there you go. Thank you. That's the kind of leadership I need. But when we get into the world of the second I say lifting, Vinny, people don't hear lifting. They hear bodybuilding. So even though if I call it easy strength, even easier strength, this is how you get strong. People go, well, there's no biceps working it. Trust me, when you pull a 628 deadlift, your biceps are bigger than any guy who trains their biceps. People ask me what I do for arm work, and I say I don't do any arm work at all. Well, you have big arms. Well, I pick up big weights, and the body has to respond.
Yep.
You know, I don't. You know, if you want big forearms, deadlift 800 pounds. You're gonna have big forearms. You know, yeah. So yeah, it is. There is confusion there. I'd like to blame myself because I haven't made it clear enough. But I've come to the conclusion that and I'm going to use a specific word in a specific way. It's ignorance on the part of many people. It's because it's what they, from the root, ignore. They're ignoring the fact that I wrote it easy strength. They're ignoring that part I said about this can lead to a bodybuilding program. And certainly you could get a hell of a body. I mean, if you overhead pressed 300 and deadlifted 600 and can do 25 pull-ups, you'd be buff. I mean, you would be. I mean, you would be a certifiable ass kicker. Yes. Yeah. So, and when I say ignore, and I mean that they ignore what I'm trying to say. I go to these forums sometimes, and they're dying, but I still. And someone will say, did anyone read the Dan John article? And someone will put the letters TLDR on there. Too long, didn't read. Well, and then they have a discussion on the article, and the person who didn't read it is talking about the article that they didn't read. Or I'll go to this other forum where these guys are doing these programs, and they're adult males, and then didn't work, and they'll post what their max bench press is, and it's like, that's a good max bench press for a junior boy in high school, not for an adult man, or sophomore boy, freshman boy in some cases. Yeah, so I think, people struggle with understanding.
Yeah, and I mean, that's just like, because that's the thing too, what's the first question everybody always asks you when, you tell them that they work out? It's like, well, how much you bench? And it's like, well, I bench like 225, like for a half rep maybe. And it's like, yeah, but you're a 30-year-old man, and it's like, how long have you been training? Oh, since like middle school. And it's like, yeah, but if you just train strength like you just explained, then you'd be way beyond that, and it's just crazy.
I taught my daughters when they were young an important thing. If a boy brags to you about a 200-pound bench or a 225 bench, to lean in and go, oh, I'm so sorry.
I love that. Yes.
Yeah. We're a bit of a competitive family here, so
There's nothing wrong with that though. But
well, how else can it help you?
Yeah. So I guess another question, because I think because the way I did it. So when you did it with the incline bench, you kept the incline bench in there the whole 40 days?
So there's basically three kind of options you can have, okay?
Uh-huh.
That is the way I would recommend it the first time.
Okay.
So you pick those 5 movements, and that's who you're bringing to prom. That's your date.
Mm-hmm.
There's another way that I recommend that every 2 weeks you make a small variation. So you could go from incline to bench press to decline to military. The downside of that, though, Vinny, is that if you're not if you don't have a big platform, you're just going to, I wouldn't say you're spinning your wheels. You'll still make progress, but you haven't given yourself enough reps. Sure. And so I recommend that for experienced throwers. Mm-hmm. So, and it's interesting, one of the variations we're using now is the Jefferson deadlift. The Jefferson deadlift comes in a couple of different movements, but basically you well, now some people call this a straddle deadlift. We'll call it the Jefferson / straddle deadlift. So I am standing over a bar, and the first set, I have my left hand in front and my right hand behind for 5. And then I switch hands for the second set of 5, and that's it. So 2 sets of 5. I got this from a buddy of mine who made some real progress. He lives down in Florida, but we had to come up with the idea of it's 2 sets of 5, but your hands are in different places. Yeah. So the Jefferson / straddle deadlift for 2 weeks is really a nice little change up. It really makes I don't know what else to call it, but anatomy trains if you read your Tom Myers, but it's those if you've ever seen a sailing ship with the wires and all the tackle and all that stuff, by switching hands you get a real sense of how your body is tackled up. As you stand at the top of it, you're that the main post that hangs the sails, but your hands are like this, and you really get a sense of some interesting. Ooh, I didn't know I had that muscle. I didn't even know. Boy, this is sore. What is that? I don't know. That's just a weird. So yeah, and then the third variation 1, no variation. Variation 2, small change.
I know you said different. You said, right?
Same but different. Yeah, but I would not go barbell to dumbbell or dumbbell to kettlebell. I would stick with the same tool.
Gotcha.
Because you want to have some ability to measure loading. Variation 3 is the one that you'll find on my website, and I came up with this back in 2010 and 11 to help these. We had some older Olympians who wanted one last run at the 2012 Olympics, but they couldn't train like they used to. So variation 3 is you do 2 weeks of no variation. Week 3 is a completely different training program.
Okay, yeah.
Go back to so it goes 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1. If the first time we'd run it through, we would have you do the 5 basic exercises, probably just like I outlined them to you, with the farmer walk, not the swings, but the farmer walks. Okay, so vertical push, vertical pull, deadlift, farmer walks, ab wheel. So 10 sessions of that. Week 3, we would have one day I would have you do left arm press, a left arm pull, that weird squat. You hold a weight in your left hand and you squat. It's called a suitcase deadlift, where you hold a weight down in your left hand and you deadlift, and then what's called the suitcase carry, heavy weight in your left hand, and you go for a walk. The second day of the week, you would do squat followed by sprint, squats followed by sprints. We used to call them lift and offs, but now we call them lift and off. About 3 rounds of that, and that's all. And then on day 3, you would do all that work on the right side. You follow, right hand press, right hand pull. And then on day 4 of that week, only 4 workout sessions, squats followed by sprints, or squats followed by hill sprints or something like that, where you're practicing that gear change. The following Monday, you're back on the 5 movements of easy strength. So variation 1, no variation. Variation 2, every 2 weeks, slight changes, same equipment if you can. Variation 3, 2 weeks, no variation. Third week, almost a radically different program, 2 weeks on, 1 week off. Okay?
Yeah.
By the way, that takes 12 weeks.
Okay, the third one does?
Yeah, because that extra week adds a month to the program.
Yeah.
The upside of it is that the people who did that got stronger and felt good. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to mention the person's name, but a very good thrower had their best year ever following that. But then during the Olympic year decided this isn't enough work, started training with an Olympic lifter coach who made the person Olympic lift 5 days a week, and they left all the big throws in the weight room.
Yep.
In my world, we call that chasing 2 rabbits.
Yes.
If you chase 2 rabbits, you go home hungry. You can be an elite discus thrower, you can be an elite Olympic lifter, but you can't be both. And I used to try that in my career, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the way that you're always able to just take what seems like such a complicated concept and just simplify it down like that. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, I feel like that's another thing too, is especially now in the day of age of, oh, research this, research that. What's the newest article? Oh, this says so and so. And then it's like, yeah, but what about the stories from the people, from the 1900s? What were they doing then that still works today, but we're not doing because we just forgot about it for whatever reason it may be.
There's a bunch of people in a hissy fit over this new study that says back squats do the glutes better than hip thrusts. Well, my thought is, why is this an either or?
Yep.
The reason I think hip thrusts work is because, I have some, I've had some injuries in my career, but I can teach you to hip thrust in about a minute. It takes me a couple days to teach you how to do a kettlebell swing. It might take me a couple months to teach you how to do the Olympic lifts.
Mm-hmm.
I need all those tools in my toolkit.
Yeah.
And I know from my own personal experience, I do this every Tuesday. Part of the workout is Tabata hip thrusts with with a band around my waist and a band around my knees. I'm pushing my knees out, and so I do 18 to 20 hip thrusts in 20 seconds. I rest for 10, and I do that for 4 minutes. Well, I got to tell you, I know that it's working my glute because it feels like someone put a hot plate on my butt. Now, does that carry over into my athletics? I don't know, but as a 63-year-old man, yeah, I need to work my butt directly because that glute is turning into jello on a hot day, except for mine. I got a fine ass. Yes.
You work, you're not working it all day.
That's right. So I think you raise a good point, Vinny, and I like it. We tend to, the cliche is throw the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, something will come along and we'll say, oh, everything else was wrong. That happened when the kettlebell showed up. That's when CrossFit showed up. Nautilus, that same thing. Bodybuilding. I remember when coaches truly, and it was weird because sports that didn't believe in weightlifting, like basketball, when they adopted weightlifting, they used bodybuilding as the model. And it's like, I can't imagine a dumber thing for people who want to go vertical because it's physics.
Yeah,
right. If I got a guy weighing 200 pounds and I bulk him up to 230, even though he looks better, he's also carrying a 30-pound shot put in his hand every time he goes to jump.
Yeah.
Not saying it, so people are starting to come around to that too. It's weird because people still get angry. The phrase is called functional training. Oh, and you shouldn't. And you'll see people psychopath it out on Facebook and stuff. But what they were trying to do is come up with a way to say non-bodybuilding training, because I couldn't say strength training because you heard bodybuilding.
Yep.
But you'll notice I still say strength training because I think you're an adult and should be able to learn something new. Even if you think there is I got to be careful. I was going to say Santa Claus. I didn't want to ruin your day. Even if you think there's a bog monster in your hall closet, that's great. You think it. That's just not true. Okay. Yeah. So I think you got to grow up sometimes and learn these tough lessons.
Yeah. I completely agree with you because that's the thing, especially coming from, I guess, me and my generation. At least when I hear functional training, I'm just like, that sounds dumb. Like, I mean, I hate to say it that way, but it's just, it doesn't even, I guess, begin to explain. Like, then you don't think strength. I think people like that. A lot of people go straight to flexibility and general.
That jumping up and down on the balls, the bouncing balls, and all that. You're gonna have a light weight in one hand and touch the cones. By the way, it's a great exercise.
Yeah.
They really are great exercises. I've seen them. I've tried a few of them. I'm like, okay, I don't have the balance. And then I catch myself, Danny, you're a discus thrower. What kind of balance do you need in the discus? Someone's going to raise their hand. You go on one foot. Yeah, you go on one foot just like a hurdler goes on one foot. It's a dynamic movement. And yeah, you do need some, but trust me, after your 10,000 reps, 15,000 reps a year, you'll figure out balance. So yes, there's value to that stuff, especially in the fields of rehab. But we also, of course, as always, just beat it to death. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, yeah, I also, yeah, going back to what you said too about, how it's not so much the either or, but, the both and. It's just, having that, one way thinking, especially, yeah, like with the hip thrust. It's like, why can't you program squats and hip thrusts in your program and then get the best of both worlds according to,
You
yeah.
like, you like what we do? Yes. Pretty. Uh, in fact, I have one of my first. I just finished this lecture. It'll be available online pretty soon. Beware of binary: on, off, yes, no, either or. If you had only one exercise to do the rest of your life, what would you do? That's a stupid question. It's not going to happen. If you could only have one piece of equipment, okay. I don't. I have a huge gym below me, a massive gym. Men's Health called it America's top gym. I'm not going to get rid of all my equipment to answer that either or question. So either or binary thinking is really the lowest level of thinking. If you watch that, I consider one of the most important shows of our time, Family Guy, Brian Griffin on the last episode, to make sure he doesn't talk, Peter says to him, "Do you want to be a good boy? Then you can't tell anybody." And Brian, because good boy and bad boy are binary options. I have grandchildren who are 5 and 6, and it's fascinating because you have to remind yourself that it's naughty or nice. Yeah. There's no gray with a 5 and 6-year-old. It's hot. Don't touch it. It's hot. It's now medium. It's okay to touch it. So binary thinking, which dominates the internet to this day, and it's sad because, these people who are writing this stuff are in their 40s and 50s. You need to kind of grow up and get a little more gray. It's not hip thrust or back squat. They're tools. They're tools. It's not kettlebells or TRX. They're tools.
Yep. And yeah, that's I remember because I listened to the Pat Flynn show. So whenever you do a segment with him, I always listen to those. I asked a question, and I asked you like, it was something along the lines of barbells or kettlebells, kind of, and you were just like, you're not looking at barbells or kettlebells, you're looking at tools for specific tasks. And then once you told me that, I was like, that is a lot better way to look at it, as opposed to like, I'm not going to do a Turkish get up with a barbell. I mean, I could, but I don't want to. / I don't see any reason to.
Don't do it.
So once you said that, it just made so much more sense.
It's Vinny, and it's a tough lesson. I mean, and the opposite is true if you don't mind. You want to do my program? It's called the Big 21. Good for you. Good. But Olympic barbell. Well, it's a program based on the original 3 Olympic lifts: clean and press, snatch, and clean and jerk. But you don't have an Olympic bar. So you're going to say, what should I do? Well, I don't want to be a jerk, but you can't do that program. Mm-hmm. But I want to. Well, good for you. Isn't that nice? You want to. And I want $1 billion, and I want to, and I want to be 4% body fat without doing anything hard. That ain't going to happen either. Okay. So we have to make sure on both sides. And I don't know where you are in your career, but that kind of insight on your part, Vinny, is going to do more for you long term than to get yourself into a cult. And it's my way or the highway. Yeah. Now, it is, one of them, in fact, it was 95 or 94, where Paul Northway said to me, "You change things every year." And I said, "Paul, what I do is in the summer, I go to these camps and I call people constantly, and I'm just trying to improve. I do change things, but we're just trying to slide over and get a little better." And so I always figure I know about 80% of what I do now is going to be around forever. 20% is going to change. The only problem is I don't know which is which. I thought the TRX was one of the stupidest things I'd ever seen in my life until I did the single arm, one arm row, the single arm row. And I was like, oh my God, that exercise by itself is why you have a suspension trainer.
Yeah.
Because you keep your heels together doing that, and it exposes any gaps you have in your pulling system down to your ankles. The ab wheel, I champion the ab wheel constantly, and people say, well, it's only $10. Yeah, it's $10. It's a great investment. It can ruin your days. You overdo an ab wheel, wake up the next day and either laugh at a joke or fart. You're going to be on the ground cramping, man.
Oh, yeah.
And then we'll all laugh at you. So sometimes, the hip thrust, I was exposed to the hip thrust for the first time in '84 at the Olympic Training Center. No way I was going to do it. And then about a decade later, it was the glute bridge, it was called. But I wasn't going to do it because it was a Jane Fonda exercise,
Mm-hmm.
But when then Brett brought it out with load, my mind went poof.
Oh, yeah.
The way we look at prowlers now, prowlers,
Mm-hmm.
as a horizontal squat. I don't know. That's not what it is, but I need a better word for it. It'll come. But it's that horizontal squat idea where you're going to do, I'm going to go left, right for 5 reps. Left, right, left, right. I'm going to do 10 sets of 10 steps. Next week, I'm going to add more load. Oh, that insight.
Yep.
I mean, it's progressive resistance exercise. I got it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it was off your recommendation. Actually, I'm starting to dive into the Glute Lab book too. So yeah, really interesting seeing Brett's story and stuff in terms of everything there. And then growing up not having a butt makes sense why he's obsessed with them now. So
and again, in 10 years maybe something would be along, and here I am singing the praises of this, and it'll be no that. When my first published article in this field was on, and people come and train with me and say, I never see you guys overhead squat. 2 months later, they come to see us train, and that's all we're doing. A lot of these great exercises, it's how you plug them in, or this piece of equipment or this training idea. It's where you plug it in, and that's a big issue with me. I don't know if I always tell people it's not moral theology. It's not good or bad. It's appropriate. Is the snatch appropriate for an 87-year-old grandmother? Well, if she wants to be an Olympic lifter, yeah. Well, she has to be able to hinge and squat and have mobility, flexibility, and all that. And I tell you, I would love to be part of that group that helps her move along. But most of the time, no. You follow. So it wasn't that the snatch is good or bad. It's just does it plug and play. The lessons from snatching as a coach, you go to this clinic and you Olympic lift for 5 or 6 years, your vision of how people train is going to be markedly better than someone who comes from just a machine-only background.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So.
No, I completely agree. But other than that, that was awesome. Yeah, we're at about 50 or so minutes now. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add or anything. I guess if there was one takeaway, I guess, that you wanted people to have about just strength training in general, I guess, what do you think that might be?
Well, you already said this, Vinny. We are, as a strength coach and a strength and conditioning coach, I have a set of tools. And with those tools, I have movements that go on top of them. And what we do with that toolkit and those movements is we look at your goal, and then my job is to bring in the appropriate tools and movements to support you. That's what the word coach. It's funny, I explain this at workshops and people go, oh my God, it's so obvious. A coach is a coach. A coach is a conveyance with 4 wheels drawn by a horse that takes you from here to there. So my job is to take you from here to there. And so really it's about toolkits and movements. And then your goal is this, okay, this tool, that's going to be good. With those tools, we'll do these movements. The appropriate reps and sets for this goal are here. In September, October, November, here's the reps and sets that you need. January, February, March, they're going to be probably less reps, maybe a few more sets. April, May, June, it might be a third the number of sets and half the reps, yeah. because it depends on where we need to be at that time. Mm-hmm. So, I tell you, if you get a chance, we've the one thing I would like to say is that we are in an experiment. As we're speaking, I've got some people doing an experiment with me, and the feedback's already been good. So what we're doing is I have a complex called complex C, and that's snatch, don't let go of the bar. So snatch 5 to 8 times. Overhead squat, let's just say 5 times. Back squat 5 times. Good morning 5 times. Row 5 times. Snatch grip deadlift 5 times. Put the bar down. 6 times 5. And you're going to do that for 3 rounds. After that, you're going to do easy strength Olympic lifting. And sometimes, most of the time, the clean and jerks are just 3 total reps. But you're doing it for 40 days. So 5 days a week. So the reason if you have to take more to warm up, you have to take more. But the one workout is 3 sets of 3 in the snatch, followed by 3 singles in the clean and jerk, followed by farmer walks. That's it. Yeah. We're experimenting now, so we're using that complex to warm up the snatch. So your time under tension can be up to 2 minutes on that. Yeah. So we're looking at, but you're going hinge squat, the snatch, squat, hinge. If your hinge and squat aren't lubed up, then you go over, you do your 3 sets of 3, your 3 singles, your farmer walk for work capacity. Thank you very much. So what I'm trying to do is I'm going to continue through my career of keep pushing this concept of easy strength into clearer and clearer paths for people. Trying to get more and more do this, if you will. Oh, you're an Olympic lifter, you want to try easy strength? Now, someone's going to raise their hand and say, well, that's not what the Iranians, the Bulgarians, and Chinese are doing. And my response usually is, well, are you Iranian, Chinese, or Bulgarian? If you're a 35-year-old guy who has a background in Olympic lifting and a wife, 2 kids, 2 jobs, a car, a dog, and a cat, you're defining me. In 1991, that's what I did. And if you give me a 20-minute workout every day to do, I can still stay on the platform and compete a long time. You give me a 6-hour workout, and my wife's going to come in and slap me across the face.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of where I'm heading. Is there anything else I can help you with?
I don't think so, Coach. Yeah, that was incredible. I really, really appreciate it. But yeah.
Would you mind on this, if you don't mind, go to my danjohn.net. Mm-hmm. It's the free one. Would you at least either link Even Easier Strength to the show notes or whatever you got?
Oh yeah.
Just type in easy strength, and anything that's written online, type in so people can kind of see where it's at.
Right.
And if you're a member of Dan John University, I would be fine with you cut and pasting one of the easy strength updates. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, more than happy to do that. That sounds excellent. But no, thanks so much. And then, but yeah, other than that, that's kind of all I got. Seriously appreciate your time again. Means more than you know, I'm sure, but I'm sure you.
And how hard was it to get me to do this?
Oh, so you said you would do it, so not hard at all.
We're under 24 hours, right?
Yes, sir. Yep. Yeah, just there and back. Boom. Send me an email, and boom, here we are.
There we are. So next time you bring me on, and I'm happy to do it anytime.
Yeah.
Just let me know, okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and if this is good, this might actually help me, because the clarity that the questions you had really might help me explain the whole concept to people, okay?
Right.
In fact, that would be maybe I should ask somebody to do that. Make a PowerPoint history of easy strength.
Hey, there you go. Yeah. Hey, I would very much, because just you going through that was super, super awesome and insightful. And sometimes you think people pull things out of thin air, but especially in your case, like, no, there's a lot that went into this that led to this where we're at now, and it's still changing from there. From 2020.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and I think there's something, especially with young coaches, young trainers, they need to hear that this stuff doesn't, there's no one just suddenly comes out out of a fog bank on a ship and hands you Excalibur. I mean, it's a lot of time, a lot of pain, a lot of injuries, a lot of mistakes, we got to do better than this.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. When you're a coach and you stand back and go, we have to do better than this. We have to do better. And I think a lot of people miss that. And again, I think a lot of people are ignorant. They don't even try to understand that. Yeah. Well, my friend, I'm only, as you know, an email or Skype away. I'm here to help you, okay?
All right. Thanks so much. Seriously appreciate it. And then, looking forward to hearing from you soon. Take care.
Stay in touch. Bye-bye.